Hi, you guys. I think I'm live. Hello, hello, hello. I'm so happy to see you guys. I've been watching the feed a little bit. I've been reading your questions in our Facebook group, and I'm so happy to see you guys. Can you guys see me and hear me really well too? Good, good, good. It looks like we have clarity, which is one of our themes for the work that we're doing with our crystals in the next couple of weeks. So, hi everybody. And it's Melanie's birthday today, so we are celebrating Melanie's birthday with her, which is very, very fun. Hello, hello, hello. Um, I'm gonna walk you through tonight the trigonal and the orthorhombic, or sorry, rhombohedral crystals. And after I go through our content for tonight, I want to leave. Oh, thanks, you guys. I want to leave some time for questions. Lots of questions. And so be thinking about what it is that what's on your mind about crystals. And it can be related to tonight's content specifically, or it can be something really different. I'm always excited to take you or go with you wherever you guys want to go. Hi, Leanne. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you. So tonight I'm actually really excited because we're talking about the trigonals. And the trigonals are those record keeper triangles. See if I can catch the light there. They are those record keeper triangles that we find on our quartz, on our rubies. Here's this ring is trigonal. I don't know if you can see that, but my ruby in that ring has the trigonals on it. Do you see? And then your sapphires, of course, which, by the way, I just put more of these sapphires. I just found another bag. This is definitely the last bag we have, though. So I've just put these back in stock. So if you missed these trigonal sapphires and you wanted one, can I just tell you, I'm thinking about doing this, so we'll see what you think. But I actually think taking this and having this set as a pendant would be really beautiful. I don't know if any of you are thinking about doing that, but it's sapphire, which is a 9 on the measure of hardness scale, which means you can wear sapphire every day and never worry about it. So I think this would make a really beautiful, can you imagine just having a bezel put around that, just wearing that beautiful sapphire every day? I think that would be really lovely. So those are back in the shop too. If you're hearing an echo, it's because you have me open in 2 windows. So be sure that you close whatever other window. It might be Facebook, it's open, and then the stream, but it means you have me open in 2 places. And if you're hearing me talk to you from 2 different voices. You totally could. You could absolutely take this and have it made into a ring. I think it would be beautiful. It would be like a solitaire kind of. I mean, how gorgeous is that? What I love about these sapphires is the color. I mean, it's like the truest cornflower blue sapphire color. That is the color every sapphire should be. That is the most beautiful, most gemmy, most expensive color of sapphire. When it's too dark, now some people really like a dark blue sapphire, and we have those back in stock too. We have our black sapphires. Now, if you missed the black sapphires, because that happened a while ago, and you may not have been in GemWise, most of these have the trigons too. So if you want a larger piece, if you go into the section of sagegoddess.com where your tools are, the GemWise tools, maybe one of you can help with a link, you'll actually find the larger black sapphires, a lot of which also have the trigonics on them. So those are back today, but again, just a very limited number of those. So we have lots to talk about too. Wow, Jackie says that hers has numbers in it too. One side there's a 22 and the other one numbers of 5. We're going to talk a little bit about why it is that people say these trigonics are happening. And it seems to be, this wasn't really a formation that anybody was talking about 5-10 years ago. It's a relatively recent conversation. Not to say that they didn't exist. Obviously they existed, but the conversation in metaphysical circles really didn't take off until recent years. And so Judy Hall's written about them. Judy Hall, of course, author of the Crystal Bible, someone I greatly respect and admire. I actually own, if there's time, I'll go grab it and show it to you. I think I showed it to you before. I actually own Judy Hall's quartz point that she used to write about in the Crystal Bible when she was talking about trigonics. So I own the piece of quartz. Apparently, I own the piece of quartz that has the most trigonics on it that has been found in Brazil. So that's kind of a cool thing. Love her. Okay. So I'm going to start by doing just the general opening protocol. for all of our classes, which I would encourage you to do the same thing. One of the things I wanted to mention to you is, if you don't want to burn your beautiful incense that I made you on charcoal, you have an alternative. So I'm going to smudge with the ceremonial incense. Oops. So what you can do is take your incense, take your abalone shell, take just a pinch of your incense, put it in the bottom of your abalone shell. Okay, so just sprinkle it in there. Okay, and then what you can do is take your lighter or your torch, whatever tool you're using, and just aim it right at your incense and light it. And that will do the same thing as working with a charcoal disc, because there's mako in it, which is a natural incendiary agent. So what it means is you don't need to have your charcoal disc. Isn't that cool? So fun. So Beth's like, are you in my head? I haven't been able to get the charcoal anywhere. So keep in mind, you can always get charcoal from us. We have charcoal on our website, but some people don't like to work with charcoal, and I get that. You know, I have clients who legitimately feel like, I don't know, they don't like it. And so that's why I always try to do alternatives for things. Yeah, if you want a torch, we've talked about this, Amazon.com, because it's a culinary tool. This is the they use these torches to make creme brulee. You know, when they put the sugar crystals on top and they torch it to melt them. So that's what that is. So just using the smoke to clear off and clean out any energies that are stuck, anything that you need to release into the smoke tonight. It's actually a little warm in here, so I'm going to go turn on the air. Bear with me, I'll be right back. Okay. And then, yeah, so we have, we do carry the abalone shells. We have everything. I mean, this is smudging and incense is kind of our bailiwick here at Sage Goddess. So if you need abalone shells, we have different kinds actually. We had some beautiful gemmy black ones for a little while. This is one of those. Isn't that beautiful? It's actually called black abalone. And we have plain ones, and then I think we had pink for a little while. So we try to offer a diversity of abalone, and then of course just your standard pieces too. But we're really picky and make sure that we find ones for you that are beautifully polished, because there's nothing worse than a dirty looking abalone shell. So I'm a fan of having ones that are almost like jewelry. And then after we smudge, I like to open a sacred circle, and you've seen me do this many times before. This is one of the main reasons why selenite is so important, because you can really, there's a lot of different tools you can use to open a circle. If you have a wand, like this one, a single terminated wand, which is what this is. This is a shell on the bottom. And you can see right there. See that? And then it has a single quartz point on the top. So you can actually use this to open a circle in ritual and bring it all the way around. But quartz doesn't clear energy. Oh, that's so funny. Annie says, I heard you have to put salt at the bottom of an abalone shell to appease the water gods and protect it from fire. You want to see something funny? Do you know what I always have in my abalone shell? Salt. And I keep my 2 garnets here. You know, the 2 garnets that I always use after ritual, because after ritual, I always feel lightheaded. Do you ever get that? Just a little, I call it the ritual buzz. I just feel a little kind of lightheaded after ritual. So after every ritual, and even after class, I take 2 raw almondine garnets and just hold them in my hands before, usually even before I sit up, or certainly before I start to walk around and move, just to make sure I'm fully in my body and grounded. So I always, if you come and see any of my abalone shells, I always have a Palo Santo, a piece of salt, and then 2 of my my almondine garnets. So you and I were on the same wavelength. Now, I also keep my selenite wand in here. And that way, I mean, here's the cool thing, and this is why I love teaching these classes and having it be live so you can ask questions, because if Annie hadn't said that, I wouldn't have been teaching you about this tonight. So thank you, Annie, for your question. this is a really cool thing because what you can do if you're going to travel is just wrap saran wrap around this and take it. You know, put a lighter in here and you've got the whole thing ready to go. So it becomes sort of like travel altar tools. You can even put a tea light in here if you wanted to kind of make the set really complete. And then what some of my friends do is they actually will do that, wrap it all up, and they put this in the trunk of their car. Because have you ever gotten somewhere where you really wanted to do ritual and you were like, crap, I don't have any tools. I don't have a smudge. I don't have salt. I don't have quartz. I don't have anything. Have you ever been in that pinch? So we have little travel altars and all kinds of things in the shop. We do have garnet in the shop. So if you go to sagegoddess.com and you go up into that top left box and you search travel altar, abalone, almandine garnet, all these things, you're going to find everything. And it all is shipping free right now because we have that promotion going on with code 15. So this is a good time to pick up on stuff that's heavy. You know, the free shipping is always a nice opportunity because if you're shipping stuff that's heavy, you end up saving a lot of money. Okay, as far as salt, it's a great question. I love Himalayan salt. This is Himalayan. And it's pretty much all we use. And it's all I use in cooking too. I love cooking with Himalayan salt. I love eating Himalayan salt. There's nothing to me more delicious. I wait all year. I don't like tomatoes except in the summer because I love heirloom tomatoes, especially like homegrown heirloom tomatoes. There's nothing more delicious than slicing thick slices of heirloom tomato. You put some balsamic drizzle over it and maybe a little goat cheese or a little feta cheese, and then sprinkle Himalayan sea salt over it and a little olive oil. Get out of town. So what are we talking about tonight? So we've talked about creme brulee and a little, I don't know, a little tomato salad. Maybe I'm hungry. Don't know what's happening. But we have smudged. Our circle is open. I'm going to use my big mama wand. This is my newest acquisition. You may have seen some of these tools at the full moon. Did you see my chalice that Louis brought from England, from Glastonbury? Isn't it beautiful? With the garnets. And this I love because this is really good for me. Again, during ritual, I need the energy of the quartz to raise the vibration, but after ritual, I need the grounding of the garnet. So this is like the ultimate ceremonial chalice for sure. And then the wand, this is selenite. And of course, there is a beautiful copper Merkaba on the top and a cut and faceted amethyst in there too, which is, again, a very helpful crown chakra stone for when you are doing ritual work. I just like to show you all the things. And Louis might be back here. We're talking about having him back here in a couple of months. So if these are tools that that attract you, I can give you notice when he's coming back. So our circle is open. Well, you know, these tools are on a different level, right? These are more one of a kind pieces. And I would love to know, you know, if these are things that are interesting to you, because some people want tools like that and some people don't. So I'm always kind of looking and saying, okay, is this interesting to people? Is it not interesting to people? So I'm glad you like it. Yeah, so Epiphany of Love. I'm not sure what your name is, so bear with me, but I'm going by your handle. I love black salt too. And the other way, so black salt's very purifying, and it's also delicious. Like a little baguette with some really soft butter and a little bit of black Hawaiian salt sprinkled on it. That's not bad. Okay, cool. Well, I will keep you guys posted. This was the only selenite one that he had, but if he brings other things, I will let you know. I was gonna, because we're doing show and tell, I was gonna show you this. If you're easily offended, can you just cover your eyes for a minute? Because I'm gonna show you something. I'm going to show you some naked people carved out of a stone. So if that would upset you or offend you, you should close your eyes right now. And then I'm going to show you. Because, you know, there's always that. Gemstone porn, kind of. I'm showing you because I think it's funny. Now, this is Shiva and Shakti, right? I mean, this is the divine union. And what I love is, here she is on the back. You know, she's just kind of hanging out with the flowers, and then in the front, she's going downtown. I had to show you. It's gem-wise. If I have weird things, you're pretty much the only people who probably want to see that. So I had to show you. I know. Bam. Are you awake now? In case you were sleeping or bored, I just want to make sure that you were awake and paying attention. And I'm pretty sure that you are now. Kimberly remembers it. That's right. Here's what's funny. Are you ready? This is really, really funny. I didn't want that. Okay. I thought it was funny, and I showed it on the video, but I didn't mean to buy that. So, but I had set it down with my stuff, and that nice man took that to mean that I wanted to take that home and have that forever. So I now took it home and have it, but it wasn't really what my intention was. It is made out of ruby zoisite. You see the green? Really beautiful ruby zoisite too. I mean, the quality is really, really pretty. The color is intense, because with most stones, what you're looking for in terms of like good quality is always intensity of color. So the intensity of color is beautiful in this. I'm not going to turn it around again. Yeah, it chose me. That's right. I don't know why it chose me, but you never know. I do believe the crystals find their people. So yeah, put it in a specimen sale. I'm worried. I'm worried people would be offended and say, why, why would you? I don't know. Okay. I know it's too funny. So now that I've made you laugh and we've talked about food, let's talk about the meat of tonight. This is the set for next month, by the way. So if you haven't gotten your April tools, they are in the class. This is your beautiful engraved quartz palm stone that says Magnify. And then we are working with yellow apatite, the juiciest, gemmiest pieces, clear pieces of yellow apatite I've certainly ever had. And then we are working with red aragonite next month. So that is your set for April, and it is in the shop right now. So here's what I want you to know. And it's funny because I'm actually going to talk to you about basic needs tonight a little bit, because I'm going to talk to you about what Judy Hall has had to say about trigonics, and she takes it back to that place. She actually takes it back to basic psychology and to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and what as human beings, which interests me too, because I used to teach the hierarchy of needs in the context when I used to teach undergraduate students, because we used to talk about what drives human behavior. So in a psychological context, when we go back to Maslow, what drives human behavior, there's a hierarchy of your needs. And of course, like your primary need is safety, right? So, and the way Maslow described it was, you can't get to the higher order of behavior, of thought, of expectation, unless those more basic needs have been met. Does that make sense? And so, but one example of a higher order behavior or pattern or process is spiritual development, spiritual evolution. That's up here. But down here is safety. And so what Maslow would say was, if you don't feel safe, then spiritual development doesn't even matter. If you're hungry, spiritual development doesn't even matter. Only once you are safe and you have food to eat, like your basic human needs are taken care of, then you can worry about higher order needs and desires, because then it's relevant. Does that make sense? And so Judy Hall was talking about that in the context of the trigonics, because what she was saying was the trigonics are a new conversation. Jackie wants me to talk about psychology. You know what? This is what gets me excited too. So I am kind of taking it to an intellectual place, and then I'll pull it back to a metaphysical place. But so what Judy Hall was saying was the trigonics have come here as teachers, and part of what they're trying to do is help us identify those basic needs, meet those basic needs more quickly and efficiently, so that we can evolve and accelerate our spiritual development. And I'm kind of in agreement with that theory. For a long time, think about it in terms of human development, we've been slow relatively, but there is this, what she calls, sort of the cosmic timeline being accelerated. And I agree with her. I think we're being pushed a little bit to accelerate, to meet more of those basic needs, and to then be able to focus more on spiritual development, some of those higher order skills. I think that's important. And so her theory is that the trigonics have come as messengers, and that what the trigonics are, what these triangles are, is really an encrypted code. I'm trying to get you like the clearest possible triangle so you can really, really see. Do you see the triangles there? There's a big one. Do you see? Like this, honestly, this whole thing is a triangle. But then there's triangles within triangles. Do you see? That's about as clear an image of a trigonic as I'm going to be able to give you. Do you see them all? And they're not even. I mean, they're all moving in the same direction. So the other thing Judy Hall says, if you are trying to take the energy of the trigonics and expand it out into the world, okay, like me. So if you're a teacher and your focus is not so much on pulling all of that energy in for yourself, but your focus is how to harness that energy and send it out to the collective, then you always want to work with your trigonics facing up. No, trigonics are record keepers. Yeah, it's a great question, actually. They are this. We're talking about one and the same thing. Isn't that cool? Okay, so here's what's interesting too. We are only, and this, you should write this down, okay? We are only seeing trigonics in certain crystal structures, okay? We're only seeing them in stones that are either rhombohedrons or hexagons. That's all, though. You know, we're seeing them in those two crystal structures. Why is that? Why is it that we're only seeing it in those two crystal structures? Of course, ruby is hexagonal, so we're going to be talking about rubies and sapphires next month when we move into the hexagonal crystal structure. Isn't that beautiful? But why? You know, we see them on amethyst, we see them on quartz. A couple people I know have seen them on pieces of rose quartz. I know people who've seen them on citrine. Stephanie and I, Hibiscus Moon and I, are primarily seeing them in the corundums, the rubies and sapphires, and then amethyst. But quartz, of course, you're seeing them all over the place. And like I said, I have friends who've seen them in the rose quartz and the citrine. Here's what I think, okay? So the rhombohedron stones and the hexagon stones, those two crystal structures, are known as the helper stones. Okay, are you ready? And this isn't just me. I mean, this is like a whole amalgam of metaphysical writers and people who are studying this lineage and so forth. So the rhombohedrons and the hexagons, those two crystal structures, are where we're seeing evidence of the trigonal structure, or what we know as the record keepers. And they're known as the helper stones. Helpers in terms of being healers, helpers in terms of being facilitators. These are stones of evolution and advancement, if you think about it. And think about what ruby and sapphire do. These are teacher stones. They truly are. Ruby is here to teach you about how to harness and work with the life force energy, and sapphire is here to help you take what you know and share it with others. Sapphire has always been known as the teacher stone. It makes you eloquent, it makes you articulate, and in fact, the best duo, if you're a teacher or public speaker or anybody who has to be articulate when you're speaking, the best duo of all is amazonite and sapphire. I've often thought, actually, about having like a teaching ring made for the shop for customers. It's just a very simple design, but a combination of amazonite and sapphire. Because so many of you are teachers and, you know, Reiki masters and healers and people who need to be able to speak in front of groups and feel really confident in what you're saying, and those stones are such a powerful combination for that. So good. Well, that's cool. Victoria says her wedding ring is a 9-carat ruby on white gold. I don't want to pry, but I would love to see a picture of your of your wedding ring. Yeah, and you could design your own, or you could wire up a necklace. You know, like when I used to go, I was a consultant for a long time, and when I used to go on big consulting trips, especially international ones, and I'd be very, very nervous, I would put an amazonite in one pocket and a sapphire in the other. And I just felt like that was those were my stones for communicating clearly and being articulate and being focused. For sure, for actors too. Actors, musicians, performers of any kind. I mean, think about people, I think about singers too, who have to project their voice. Anybody who has to stand in front of a group and really like hold the energy of that group and be able to engage people and keep them focused, and all of those things that you worry about when you're a teacher or a performer of any kind, those two stones would be really, really helpful. So the two stones that we're talking about right now, Jackie's asking me to repeat, the two stones, if you have to be articulate and confident and be a good teacher or a good performer of any kind, are amazonite, which is a throat chakra stone, which helps you to be articulate and focused, and then sapphire, which is a teaching stone, also hexagonal crystal structure, so it's known as one of the helper stones. And that's why I think we're finding more of the record keepers there. Oh yeah, I mean, think about it. So Nicole's asking about visual performers. I think anyone who has to get in front of a group of people. I even think about healthcare providers. I mean, think about doctors. Every time a doctor goes in and has to, or a nurse has to go in, nurse practitioner has to go in and diagnose a patient, that isn't a performance, but it certainly is a moment where you have to be, you know, really focused and receiving the information and being able to at the same time process it and come up with a diagnosis or a recommendation or a prescription or something like that. So any position where in the moment you have to be able to think clearly, I think that's where those stones are really, really helpful. And then the question about emerald. Emerald is a very different stone. interestingly enough. So emerald is a member of the beryl family. So it's a different chemical composition as well as a different crystal structure altogether. It's a more brittle stone, but it's still considered to be a very precious stone. It's in many cases worth more than a diamond of the same weight, carat weight. But emerald is for fidelity and wisdom. So one of the reasons they used to use emerald primarily in engagement rings is it was thought that if one of the parties was not, how do I say, not ethical, it would make them more focused on their partner. Trying to be delicate about that. Okay, isn't that cool? We could go on and on and on all night. But keep the questions coming, because if there's time at the end, I want to come back and really be able to respond to your questions. Because like I said, I think that the Q&A part of what we do together is actually sometimes the most powerful. Because if you have a question, I promise you somebody else has a question too. So it's really good. Okay, so I have so much to show you. Let's talk about these beautiful stones. So what's the difference between a what we call a trigonal stone and a hexagonal stone? So the way we think about crystal structure is in terms of cross section, okay? So if you were to take a trigonal stone, and the stones tonight are trigonal / rhombohedral, so they fall into that kind of like dual category. If you took a cross section, they have 3 sides, okay? If you take a cross section of a hexagonal stone, it has 6 sides. And one of the things I want to show you, if I have a pen, let's see if I can find a pen. So I actually want to draw this for you a little bit. Super low tech, me drawing you a picture on a piece of paper. But if you think about what a hexagon is, okay, so let me keep this focused here. If you think about what a hexagon is, it's this, right? It's 6 sides, hex. Xe is how you say 6 in Greek. Xe, okay, which is the root of the word hexagon. So here we have Xe, right? We have 6 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you think about what a hexagon is, and you break it down into its constituent elements, not only does it have 6 sides, can you see that? But how many triangles does it have in it? Do you see that? 6, yeah? I'm super low tech. I've started to refer to myself as grandma around here. Grandma likes to be low tech sometimes because the computer stuff freaks me out a little bit. Right? So a hexagon not only has 6 sides, it has 6 triangles inside of it. So I want you to think about it this way. So tonight we're talking about stones that have either a triangular structure or the structure of the rhombohedron. But in either case, you take a cross section, you have the number 3, which is the triangle. So tonight we're really focusing on that sacred shape. Next week, or next month, when we talk about the hexagons, it's almost like we're taking this and just expanding the energy exponentially. Okay, so here's what I want you to remember. Oh, Jackie, you're so cute. I wish you were here, Jackie. So many moments where I'm thinking, like, if I just had somebody who knew all of that good magics. My husband actually is my tech support, and he comes from that world and he loves that. Like, that's his comfort zone, and thank God for him, honestly, because that is not what I do. I'd rather talk to you about triangles and creme brulees than talk to you about math or technology. So let's talk about that. So Angela's asking a fantastic question. Let's talk about the metaphysical meanings of 3 and 6. Are you ready? Does anybody remember who is number 3 in the major arcana of the tarot? It's a little pop quiz. Were you guys in my tarot class last year? Do you remember who number 3 is in the major arcana? And this is kind of a trick question, but if you're a 3 life path, which my daughter is, this is also going to be your totem card, your life path card. Does anybody remember what that was? Empress. That's right. So what is the 3? The Empress, what she represents to us, because remember in the tarot, and I'm coming back to the tarot because it's an interesting, it's a helpful way to think about numerology in case you forget. Okay, so coming back to the tarot is always like a nice touchstone for me. So in tarot, 1 is solo, right? The magician. And that's my life path card, right? So the number 1 is the magician who has all the tools and for the most part can make it all happen herself or himself. But that's also the challenge, the life path challenge that the magician has to overcome. the magician can't really do it all himself. He needs other people. And so then he progresses further on his path, and 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes the magician plus an assistant. Okay, 2 becomes the magician evolving to recognize that he really does need help. 2 becomes 3 to make a triangle. And this is where we see the tarot become more complex. And what the Empress represents is the best of the magician with the best of his help. Okay, the Empress is what you can actually do when you don't try to do it alone. And so I love that magic of number 3 as well. If you want to know how to calculate your life path number, you just break your birthday down, okay, into single digits, add them all up, the month, the date, and then the whole year. You know, if it's 1955, 1955, add all of that up, reduce it down to a single digit, that's your life path. So if you're a 3, the Empress is all about that first formation of stability. Now the 4 is the cube, okay? Look at my super crappy low-tech hand gestures. Can you follow this right now? So the 2 are, you know, when you have the magician plus help, the magician is learning. Then the magician turns into 3, becomes the triangle, and then turns into 4, which is the cube. At the point where you get the 3 with the Empress, that's the first time you have stability energetically, okay? Because 2 stands on their own, but they don't create a structure. So the triangle is the first formal structure that we find when you add up, when you're in those early numbers in numerology. So 4 is stabilizing, okay? 4 is stabilizing and creating a foundation, but 3 is the first formal structure that we can work with. Now, doesn't that make sense? In every spiritual tradition, 3 is one of the most sacred numbers. And in every spiritual tradition on the planet, there is a trinity. Every spiritual tradition. Think of Lakshmi and Ganesha and Saraswati, right? That's the Holy Trinity in the Hindu tradition. Think of, you know, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit in the Christian tradition. Think of Maiden, Mother, and Crone in the pagan tradition. Think about how we think about 3 primary moon phases, right? Full and then waning, waxing. And so that number 3, that tripod, that triangle, is the beginning of all creation. Does that make sense to you? It is where creation gains stability. And so that's why I think we see it rigorously repeated across every major spiritual and theological tradition ever in history. Now 6 is double that, okay? 6 is double that. So 6 is the first primary structure, and I'm wearing, all my jewelry I'm wearing today is with quite a bit of intention. I have a triangular shaped moldavite because I think once I get all this stuff to you, this information, I want you to start to live into it a little bit. Like start wearing more triangles in your jewelry. See what happens. You know those, I'm wearing, the magician here is actually a series of triangles. So even though this doesn't look like a triangle per se, there are triangles embedded in the design of this pendant. So I wear a triangle every day, but I want you to notice, I had those Aqua Aura triangles and the quartz triangles. Remember those? If you have that, go dig that up and start wearing it. See if you don't find that you start to open up a creative portal. Now think about alchemy, okay? The alchemists created symbols to represent all of creation. Is this considered to be the pattern of alchemy, okay? The glyph of alchemy, if you will, of manifestation. It's a triangle. Let me see if I can get that to show up to you. It's a triangle. Why is that not showing up? It's a triangle with a cube inside and then a sphere and a point. Have you seen this before? This is known sometimes as the glyph of the Philosopher's Stone, which is the primary creation that is born of alchemy. Why does it begin with a triangle? Because in alchemy, everything begins in the triangle. The triangle then houses the stability of creation, which returns to its own point of creation, the 0-point field. I hope I'm not losing you here, but that's why this class quickly goes from being like, oh, let's talk about metaphysical things, to really pushing the envelope and returning to like some of the deepest principles of alchemy, in fact. But it's tied, crystal structure is tied, and hopefully you're seeing that when I'm sharing with you, to everything, to the tarot, to the major spiritual and theological traditions in the world, to some of the oldest philosophy that we have access to. all the way back to original carvings and engravings that we see on temple walls in Egypt and in India and in Sumeria. These symbols are there all the way through. So absolutely. So I know this is why you're here, and I love it. But just in case I lose you, just stop me and ask questions, because I'll go back and repeat things. I just want to make sure that I'm not accelerating us too far too fast. Okay, so the triangle. When you go from 3 to 6, in my opinion, and if you think about it energetically, you're not just doubling. Every time you expand a number of sides in a sacred geometric shape, it isn't just 1 + 1 = 2. It's almost like 1 + 1 = 1,000. The energy expands and multiplies much more quickly than just adding up the individual sides and faces of a stone, which is why when you think about the Merkaba, it is not just the number of sides, but it's the number of dimensions. And so what starts really as a triangle expands very quickly into a multidimensional shape that is a form of creation. And what we know about our metaphysical history is the Merkaba used to be how we traveled. This is actually an energetic rendering of your body, if you think about it. And we talked about this before too in one of the earlier classes, about how this was really the soft spot on the top of your head, and the bottom point was the soft spot at your behind, which exists, and that you moved that way. I mean, that would pick you up and move you around between dimensions, between worlds. And as I'm saying that, you may even have a memory of all of this. Like when I'm saying this to you and you're like, oh my God, I think I remember having that experience. This is a Merkaba. This one that I wear here is a Merkaba. It's not as fancy as this. It's a little simpler, but it is a Merkaba. Yeah. I know, I wish we had the soft spot too. But I think one of the things you can do, that's why I'm saying I really want you to start to live into this a little bit, not just have it be an intellectual exercise, but I want you to start wearing triangles and noticing triangles. And when you start paying attention, when you start looking at, do you ever look at our currency? Do you ever take out a dollar bill and look at it? I'm just saying, all of these, everything I'm teaching you about in GemWise is already embedded in our culture, in the money that you use in exchange to pay for things every day. It's encoded in your DNA. It's encoded in every living cell and organism on the planet. And so this is just a process of remembering more than anything else. Yeah, the all-seeing eye, that's right. But look at the triangles. Notice how many triangles there are. Literally everywhere. You'll start looking around and seeing all the connections. And this takes us into all of those conversations about the Freemasons and the Illuminati and why those symbols are so sacred to so many people, especially in secret societies. Something to think about. That's right. But they're everywhere. I mean, they're literally everywhere. And here, even when you look at, you know, the flower of life, I'll show you just this bowl to refresh your memory what the flower of life looks like. What do you see? I mean, this is the pattern of creation. This is in your crystals. It's in your DNA. It's in plants and flowers. This is really in the center here. This is the division of the human cell after conception. Truly. I mean, the Vesica Pisces, which is, the Vesica Pisces is this. Is that symbol familiar to you? You know, it looks like a Venn diagram, right? But the Vesica Pisces is the original division of the cell after conception. It's the point of separation. And it's all related. It's all related. Isn't that cool? So it's everywhere. So here's why I think this is really, really special. I haven't found it yet, by the way. I bought a new stone in Tucson that I actually bought for tonight's class because I wanted to show you. There's a new kind of record keeper that's emerging. Do you remember me talking to you about this? There's a rutile that's forming in Brazil, and they only found it this year. So, and I'm talking like 4 months ago. So they found this pocket, they started mining and excavating, and they brought it to Tucson, and it's a new form of rutile. So usually your rutile, I don't think I have any rutile here to show you, but usually your rutile will grow this way or it'll grow that way, but it usually doesn't grow like this. This new rutile is forming triangles at every corner. The rutile is growing together. And it's the first time geologists have seen triangles formed out of rutile in quartz. It's the most beautiful thing. When I'm able to find it, it's still packed because we haven't finished unpacking from Tucson yet. When I find it, I'll take a picture and post it for you. I didn't buy any this year, you guys, because when a new stone is mined and excavated and it gets to the market like that in kind of a rushed way, it's an arm and a leg. I mean, I bought one piece and that was all I could afford to buy. And I really bought it as a teaching piece. What I'm going to do is wait until next year when it's when they have had a chance to mine a little bit more, maybe find a little bit more material and bring it to market. Because if, you know, they only had 10 pieces this year, which was all she had, you know, you're not going to pay the same price if they have 100 pieces. So I wanted to wait until it was a little more affordable. But I'll make a video actually, or maybe I'll go live once I find it just to show it to you. It's a ladder. Yeah, it's very much like that actually. It's a ladder, but because of the way it grows, it is sort of a lattice pattern. At every intersection, it forms a triangle. You know, so I asked her, because the woman who mined it is the same woman who saved me Judy Hall's Trigonic crystal last year. And so I was just having a, you know, fun conversation with her, and I said, why do you think it's forming? And she said, I think it's an encryption. I think it's a code, and I think it's a code for where we are right now, and I think it's a test almost of these other dimensions who are looking to us and saying, can they figure it out? Can they crack this code? And I think a lot of us are feeling the pressure to try, because we want to know. I mean, you want to know. It's the whole reason you're in this class. So I agree with her. I think it's some sort of encryption. Why it's happening and why it's happening right now and why we're seeing such an uptick in it is what, you know, Stephanie and I and others who are doing this work don't know, because we are seeing such a dramatic increase in the number of formations of the Trigonics, and we're seeing the formation in different crystal structures and actual different crystal families than we've seen it before, so it's kind of exciting. But I turn that to you. I mean, I'm a skeptic too, right? So you can sit and work with it and see what comes. I will tell you, I mean, there's a reason that I wear Trigonics and work with them. I think do you see the triangles on my ring? And so even with my ring, following Judy Hall's logic, I wear my triangles pointed out because, again, my work in this life is to send that energy out to people. But if I was trying to pull that energy into myself, then I could wear the ring with the triangles pointed down. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the main points, just in case you don't want to go read the whole chapter or book about Trigonics with Judy Hall. I'm going to give you a brief overview of Judy's perspective about what the Trigonics represent. Are you ready? That's a good question. I mean, Angela says, are we ready for their messages? And I don't know. What I know for sure is, and he says, are these stones actually being created now in space and time? Or are we just finding them? Let me tell you what Judy Hall says to that question, Edie, and see what you think of this, okay? And again, this is not my information to you. I'm sharing with you her perspective. Okay, according to Judy Hall, the Trigonics were formed during the Ice Age. Okay, so there were water bubbles on the surface of these crystals that were compressed. And the compression of the water bubbles over all of those, you know, millennia led to the formation of the triangles on the surface of the crystal. That's what she says. So what it is, from her perspective, is, and this is kind of crazy, an encryption from a time when our planet was in danger and in chaos. Now really think through what I'm telling you, okay, and see what you think about it. And roll it around. I'm not interested in convincing you that any of this is true, by the way. Fran, if you're asking me about the new rutile, it's not. It does have a name. When I unpack it, I had labeled it, so I will come back and let you know what that is. And Melinda's asking if I can see you. I sure can see you. Hi, Melinda. It's just the feed goes by really fast. So if you ever have a question and I don't respond and you really need me to respond, just type the question again so that I can come back and say, hi, I see you. Okay. So this is Judy, who believes that the record keepers are imprints of a time in our planet's history when there was chaos and you know, really a threat of global destruction. And so then the question becomes, so why are these coming to us now? Why are we meant to see the imprint of a chaotic time in our planet's development at this particular time? And so some people are looking ahead and saying, you know, is it because we're on the brink of some sort of major, tectonic shift in terms of our global economy or our global climate? Is there some connection, between what's happening on our planet right now and what was happening at that time? And I don't know, but it's interesting. I like to think about it. And I think it was who asked the question about whether there's a difference between stones. Pushita did. I do notice a difference between stones that have the record keepers on them and stones that don't. And I find that the ones with the record keepers are more grounding. I find them more stabilizing. And I find that I have a better, more successful time meditating with those stones than when I work with crystals that don't have those inclusions. Now, they're rare and hard to find. So there are so many people. I mean, you and I are quite privileged, right? I mean, we've seen the things, we've touched the things, you're able to access the things, I'm able to access the things. Do you know how many thousands of people there are who love crystals as much as you and I do, who've never seen a trigonic and may not ever see a trigonic? And that's one of my goals with you, especially this year, is to make sure that you know what all of the different faces, it's a lovely, very loud motorcycle, what all the different faces on your crystals mean, what all the different inclusions in your crystals mean, what the different, markings and the different, raised imprinting and things that we see on your crystals mean, because I think it's all part of a message to us. And I think if you just work with your crystal like, oh, that's a nice quartz point, and then you just put it down and you never look at it again, and when you do that, you fail to see that. Did you guys see these phantom quartz points that were in the shop this week? Holy smokes. Some of them have up to 9 phantoms in them. Did you see these? But my point is, if you don't really look at your crystals, you could miss the fact that your quartz point has 9 phantoms. Doesn't mean that there's nothing wrong if you miss it, but I think it's worth looking at your crystals and really, and especially if you have an old collection. I mean, can you imagine going back to an old box of crystals that you've had forever and pulling out a quartz point and finding out that it has a record keeper on it? I mean, that's almost like rediscovering the magic of crystals that you've had for a very long time. So it makes it fun. And what I love too is I love when people actually go back and reconnect with stones they haven't worked with in a long time, because your stones want to work with you. And what happens is a lot of us have things from when we were kids or whatever, and we put them in boxes and put them away. Kind of want you to go back and dig up all that stuff, because I want you to look through and see if you have stuff. Now, here's a good question. So in most cases, when we talk about trigonics and record keepers, we're talking about a raised pattern. Sometimes you do find them as indentations. And sometimes, if you were here in the room with me, I would take you downstairs to our showroom, because I have an amethyst, an celestial amethyst cluster, big cluster in the showroom. And it has record keepers on every point, but they're not indented and they're not raised. It's like an etching. Why is that? On every point. So again, we don't have answers, we just have questions, but I think it's interesting. So let's talk about that. So Judy, here are the reasons why Judy Hall says you have a crystal with a trigonic. Are you ready? Judy Hall says if you have one, it's because it chose you. And it's because you are either going through one of these things or you're about to go through one of these things. You ready? Okay. The first reason is you are about to evolve to a level of higher consciousness. Now, what does that mean? That usually means that your spiritual development is about to increase. It may mean that you're going through some kind of a rite of passage or initiation. She uses the word initiation. I'm saying rite of passage. It could be that you're about to go through a new phase of your life. It could be that you're about to create something new. But usually, and again, you may say, well, did it really find me? I mean, I saw it at Sage Goddess and I bought it. Does it really mean it chose me? Why are you here right now? Why did you see it and find it? Not a lot of people did. Not everybody's here. You know what I mean? So that's funny. Sylvia's saying you should give a classroom virtual tour. I think I will do that actually. Maybe I'll go live tomorrow or Monday and kind of take you around. Wouldn't you kind of like to, I can show you all the very unique things that are here. It'd be really, really fun. But anyway, so no, I think it's actually really rare and unique that you're sitting here listening to me talk right now. And I think it's really rare and special. I've only had trigonics for sale in the shop maybe 3 times in the 6 years Sage Goddess has existed. So if you got one, we're talking about like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of people. So that's what she says. First one is you are evolving to a higher level of consciousness. You either have just evolved or you're about to evolve. Does that resonate with you guys? And then, yeah, look at that. Sheila says she had 22 master crystals find her in 12 months. That's pretty awesome. I mean, again, and you can take it for granted and go, well, doesn't everybody see all that all the time? No, not everybody sees that all the time, right? Okay. Then she talks about the crystals creating a feedback system, okay? Now, this is a little more complicated. So what she says is, if you are being drawn to trigonics, if they are finding you, it's because your crystals are trying to talk to each other. This is where I get excited. What she says is, if you add a record keeper or trigonic of any kind to your existing crystal collection, it will create points of contact and dialogue and develop a feedback system so that all of your crystals, especially those with encrypted codes and messages, can communicate with each other and with you. That resonated. I know, that resonated with me too. The next thing she talks about is, you're finding them. If you're finding them right now, it's because you need detoxification. And she considers, I know, it gives me goosebumps too. She considers these trigonics to be the strongest detoxifying crystals that you can work with, above and beyond any of the traditional detox crystals. Although amethyst, and I'm going to go into our 3 stones for tonight very soon in the next 2 minutes. One of those is amethyst. Amethyst is thought to be probably the foremost detoxification crystal that we can work with. Are there others that are good for detox? Absolutely. I mean, shungite is great for detox. There's quite a few stones that will detoxify not just your physical body, but your auric body. So if you need detox, that may be another reason why you're finding them. Then she talks, I don't want to go into concepts that are too esoteric because I don't want to confuse you, but she talks about this concept of the oversoul, that our planet has its own intelligence, which I talk about that all the time. There is an infinite, inherent, and encrypted intelligence on this planet, and it's unfolding through you in every moment. This is why I always tell people, and you guys know, I mean, a lot of you have been with me for a long time, and you've heard me say this thousands of times probably, but I'm always telling you, don't worry, don't be stressed. Even if you're going through something really, really difficult. I mean, even if your health is being challenged and your finances are being challenged and your family's being challenged and whatever else, just hold really steady. Because you have 2 options when you're under a great deal of stress. One is you can try and force a solution, but 9 times out of 10, that doesn't work. Or you can rest and surrender and trust in a divine intelligence unfolding around you that will actually solve any problem it creates, because that's what happens. And that's exactly what she's talking about with that feedback system. If the universe creates a challenge, it will also create the corollary solution to that challenge. That's just physics. That's cause and effect. So any challenge or situation that gets created either with you or in your energetic field or in your environment in any way, shape, or form has a parallel solution that's already in process. Isn't it beautiful? It's so good. Elsa's asking if she's the only one that drinks water during class. No, you're not. But I drink tea because I don't like water. That's right, Shelley Murphy. You got to withstand the pressure because the pressure will lift. And then what happens with a lot of people is they try to solve all their own problems, right? Like force a solution instead of trusting that there's an infinite intelligence and the universe is always unfolding through them. And then, so maybe it works, but 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work as well as the solution that's already coming would have worked if you could just be patient. It's sort of like letting karma take care of people's bad behavior, you know what I mean, versus you going and yelling and screaming, or you just standing back and going, I'm gonna let karma happen. It's just another way of thinking about something like that. Oh, I know. Well, you know what? But here's the thing. We as women, because Trisha's saying she wished her hubby understood that. By the way, we as women are having to learn to understand that too. But we as women, because we're creatures of flow, you know, really women, we are so intensely connected to the moon and to lunar cycles and to the element of water. So it's naturally inherent in us that we want to go with flow and not force. We're not typically inclined to force a solution or change or situation to adapt to our own needs, because we've learned that over time, flow is a much more comfortable, you know, it's like don't resist, don't push the river kind of thing. But even for us as women, it's hard, especially because we've had to grow, I think, in the last century or so, we've had to take on different roles. And so we've confused that masculine feminine balance in so many ways, and so we've taken on some of that masculine, linear, I'm going to fix it, all that stuff, which we return to that divine feminine knowing that we can surrender and trust. It's very, very good. I love it. Oh yeah, Erica's asking about what about a crystal changing color after you work with it? Do you know, I have seen it happen multiple times, and in fact, one of the most powerful instances, I was working with a student of mine, because when I used to be a professor, I still talked about crystals, and I used to give my students crystals as gifts. And I gave one of my students, when she finished presenting her master's thesis, I gave her a piece of lapis. And I swear, while she was working with it in front of me, it started to change color. She brought that piece of lapis back to me the next week, and almost all the color had been drained from it. And it was the exact same piece. She was a skeptic too, by the way. So this was not somebody who went and, did anything to it. So it's a very, very interesting phenomenon. You know what I mean? Okay. And then the last thing I want to tell you that Judy Hall said about trigonals, and then we'll move on to tonight's crystals, is reintegration. So what she said is many of us are having intense spiritual experiences right now that we're not even consciously aware of. Could be happening during dream time, could be happening during meditation, could be happening in a parallel universe that's sort of adjacent to our universe, because if you believe what I believe, I think there are simultaneous realities and they are all synchronous. And so there are things happening past, present, future, happening right now in the same moment. And so what she says is, if you are working with a trigonic and it's chosen you, it's because it's actively trying to integrate everything that you're learning in all of your different levels and layers of spiritual development. Interesting, right? Hi, you guys. So, I mean, and again, for me, all of that resonates. I do think we're at a very specific, unique, and challenging time on our planet. I do think our planet is trying to give us signs and symbols asking for help in many ways. And I do think that those of us who are doing this work, you and me, I think we're finding these things because we're going through these specific experiences. And as we evolve our level of consciousness and awareness, and we try to create this feedback loop between, us and our past selves and our present selves and our future selves, and letting the crystals communicate with each other, it just resonates. I know, Cindy's like, wow, wow, wow. But it's true. And so what, hopefully, like I said, you guys are the master class, right? I mean, you guys are so advanced in terms of your understanding of crystals, your own collecting of crystals, your appreciation of crystals. A lot of you have traveled and mined your own crystals. So you guys are very advanced. And I think sometimes you take that for granted, but you know so much. And I think because of the work that you're doing and because of how advanced you are, I think you are being guided to be in places and to connect with things that are going to even advance that development faster. And I think you're ready for it. Oh, that's so cool. Kristen says that what I was talking about just triggered a memory for her, and she saw a parallel her. And it's a really interesting thing. There's a whole school of thought. I don't want to digress too much on this, but this is why it's really hard for me to teach you all this in an hour. I thought I could, but there's so much to tell you. But that's why there's a reigning theory, actually, about how consciousness works. That, and think about this in your own life, okay? Did you ever have a point in your life where you had two very clear options and you chose a path, but the other path that you could have chosen would have taken you somewhere really different? Have you had those moments in your life? I'm talking about major decision points where you decided to move to California instead of New York, or marry this man instead of this man, or go to this college instead of that college. Those really pivotal conversations are those decision points. There's a whole reigning theory in terms of string theory and quantum mechanics that there is still part of you, wait for it, this is where it's really interesting, and we can talk about what this means in terms of crystals. There is a you that still went that other way and went on and married that person and chose that other college and moved to that other state and had that child. And so here you are. It's a crazy thought, isn't it? Like, here I am, and I'm here and I'm talking to you and I'm doing this, but maybe there's still part of me that is still a faculty member somewhere, and I have students and I'm lecturing, and I think about that sometimes. And then you have to think about, again, why are you here listening to me tell you this right now? The crystals are trying to show you that. The crystals, and I think, and again, this could, be careful before you really think about doing what I'm talking about, okay? There are ways that you can go and engage with that life energetically. I mean, you can do it through shamanic journey. You can, and Pushita, let me come back to that question because she's asking a very important question. I want to come back. I know. And Lakeisha, I hear you. I mean, it is touching. And can you imagine, you know, I mean, I've had clients who, for example, terminated a pregnancy. And we've talked about how, okay, so if this theory is true, it means that that woman is still, there's a possible path where it wasn't terminated and that life has gone on. And that's why I think, you know, forgiveness is possible. That's why I think healing is possible, because there is a way through shamanic journey, and I think on a much simpler level, even just working with your crystals, where you can actually connect to this other parallel experience and go in and find healing for yourself there. So if the mother who terminated her child could go and dialogue with the mother who didn't, do you know what I mean? And find forgiveness and healing there is a very powerful thing to even like begin to wrap your mind around. But all to say, the complexity of what we're talking about tonight is the reason I think you're here. And it is the reason why some of us are being brought to, you know, to work with crystals on a really profound level. And think about this. I'm glad you guys are resonating with this. Think about it this way too. If you are a healer, and I know a lot of you are, I mean, there's a reason why you're in the Holistic Healer program this year. If you are a healer, imagine what's possible for the people who come to you. If you can give them a time link, that's the only word I can think to come up with to describe what we're talking about. If you can give them a time link to be able to connect with this other parallel life that's also in progress, I just think that could be a very significant healing channel, for sure. Shining in Love, I think, is Shining in Love. Remind me who you are again here with your name, because it's hard for me sometimes with the handles. There isn't a book per se, but there are lots of different things different pieces and different articles and different websites I can connect you to. I need to make a really good bibliography. Yeah, Dolores Cannon does talk about this. That's a great recommendation, Nicole. You know how I feel about Dolores Cannon. I mean, I am literally, I wish that she was still alive, because I would really love to work with her. It's one of my big regrets of this lifetime is that I didn't reach out and try and find her before she died, because I think she's one of the most profound healers and theorists. I think of her as a physicist in many ways. She probably wouldn't describe herself that way, but I love her. So I'm glad if I inspired you to look into her. So good. Yeah, oh my God, Lisa. I mean, Lisa does very profound hypnotherapy. Can you imagine, Lisa? I think you could facilitate this. And so then becoming maybe intentional about what that would look like would be really profound for people. But Angela's got a good point too. And so that's why I was saying, be careful, you know, what you dig up. And because I don't always know what's good for me or not, you know what I do? I ask my guides. I go into meditation and I say, guides, if I am ready to go back to that place, if I am ready to heal that experience, if I am ready to go and look down that hallway, then create the time and the space and the opportunity. If I'm not, then guide me in that direction as well. Amen, aho, so it is. Love to you, Tara. Love, love, love. Yeah, Lisa Machado, who's commenting in the thread, does the hypnotherapy. So if you're looking for somebody, she's somebody I trust. So here's that. We love you, Tara. Okay, let's talk about tonight's stones. I'm going to be with you until 6:30. So if you want to do your little bit of planning for time, I have about 20 more minutes of time that I'd like to have with you. It's going to take me 10 to 15 to go through the stones, and then I'm going to leave a few minutes at the end for question and answer. Nicole, that's funny. No, but you know what? Always ask your guides. People ask me all the time, you know, how do you make decisions? And I tell them there's two ways I make decisions. One is I ask my guides, and the other is I run my pendulum. I don't ever make a big purchase without running my pendulum on it first. And to the extent that even when I was in Tucson, I always take my pendulum to Tucson, like when I'm buying stuff, and people will line up and like stand around and watch me because I'm just dowsing. And you can see the pendulum going all sorts of directions. And people ask me, what are you doing with that? And I always say, I'm making a decision with my guides. Yeah, Jackie, well, that's what I'm saying. You know, be gentle and tender with yourself. Sometimes there are places in terms of soul integration, and I do a lot of shamanic work with people, and so I'm very mindful of that. Not everything needs to be dug up right now, and sometimes not even in this lifetime. And so surrendering to your guides, trusting that your guides are going to take you to places where the healing is available to you, and then maybe not take you to places where healing's not ready yet. It's so good. So just quiet your mind and ask your guides. No, the question was about whether I recommend a certain kind of stone for pendulums. My main pendulum, like my main go-to, is a Super 7 pendulum. I had those in the shop last year. It's just my favorite. It's in sterling silver, and it's just kind of just beautiful, and it always works for me. But the reality is I have some pendulums that are old. A couple of them are even chipped, but they've been with me for such a long time that they're very trusted tools. So I almost think you can't go wrong. Just try, you know. And before, like when we send pendulums, when people buy them and it's Sage Goddess, we run them before we put them in the envelope for people. And we ask, are you Jill's pendulum? And it'll say no. So we're like, okay, well, you're not Jill's pendulum. Let me go find a pendulum for Jill until that happens. Okay, so let's start with our stones tonight. So our first stone, again, we're talking about stones of peace. The stones tonight are helper stones that are going to bring you peace and wisdom, okay? And also love. It's going to bring you heart healing, okay? The rhodochrosite in general is one of the most profound heart healing stones you will ever work with. The others that I would recommend if you have any kind of heartbreak issues at all, and we're actually talking about that. Yeah, actually, I have it on my list to do a bonus session for you guys for dowsing with pendulums, because you guys have asked a lot about that, so I'm thinking about it. Okay, what was I just telling you? Heart healing. So rhodochrosite and chrysoprase, as well as girasol quartz is another beautiful one. Obviously rhodonite. I mean, these are all of the stones of the heart chakra for heart healing, but rhodochrosite is probably the most profound. They're not the same thing. That's a really great question. Rhodonite and rhodochrosite do not come from the same part of the world. They have different metaphysical properties, and usually they look quite different too. Rhodochrosite looks like this. This is a big, big, big palm stone of rhodochrosite because I brought these pieces from Tucson to teach you about it. This is the raw piece that was in your set. Rhodochrosite is so expensive. It is so expensive. And you're about to learn why. There's actually very specific reasons why rhodochrosite is a very, very expensive stone to work with. First and foremost, rhodochrosite comes from Argentina. Most of it does. There's a Peruvian rhodochrosite too, but it's a whole different creature. It really has a very different look, feel to me completely. So at this point, I only work with Argentinian rhodochrosite. The Peruvian is beautiful. It's gentle. It just isn't as powerful, if that makes sense in my opinion. And so this is Argentinian rhodochrosite. It's a bubblegum pink color. There's always little hearts in the markings. I always find hearts in rhodochrosite, no surprise. But here's what's interesting. So rhodochrosite from Argentina grows at an extremely high elevation. It's very difficult to get there. You can't be there for very long, and it's very difficult to get back. So first and foremost, one of the primary reasons why rhodochrosite is so expensive is the accessibility issue. Now, also, pieces like this, like your rough, if you were to polish this, is super gem quality. I mean, you could, if you polished this and cut and faceted it, you would have what we would consider to be a gem grade piece. You could make a beautiful ring out of it. Your pieces, if you cut them and polished and faceted them, would yield probably a 4 to 5 carat stone. Just in case you're interested in that, I wanted to give you some beautiful rough that you could work with. By the way, your green tourmaline, the retail price of your green tourmaline is more than your set. So if you guys got that set for this month, for tonight, honestly, it's probably one of the best values, I have to say, because this is super gemmy green tourmaline. And again, you could cut and facet it, but the value, the retail value of these pieces is about $22. and your set was 19, I believe. So you more than paid for your entire set with just the green tourmaline. My goal is to keep the price of your set down, because I want, if people want a set, I want to make sure that you can afford to have one. So that was kind of a little gift. It was funny because some people who aren't in the class were like, can I buy that set? Because they wanted the tourmaline. It's like, nope. No, you can't. Okay, so let me teach you about rhodochrosite. You ready? I'm so excited to show you this. Okay, so think about, let's think about the rhodochrosite mine as a mountain. So you have the pinnacle up here, and you have the base down here, and it's separated by miles. Okay, I mean this is a huge area that we're talking about for mining rhodochrosite. Now, rhodochrosite technically is an ore of manganese. So, and it's so fascinating. If you think about the real healers, okay, sugilite is also an ore of manganese, and in fact, sugilite was discovered by people who were mining manganese in South Africa, and then found this beautiful, bright, vivid purple, crystal. And it's like, what is that? That is what happens, because all of our gemstones grow, of course, with different minerals and different metals, and a lot of times they're found kind of accidentally. When people are mining for things like manganese. Manganese is a very valuable mineral, and so it's something that is mined for around the world. Okay, so you can find manganese with sugilite in South Africa. In Argentina, you're going to find manganese with rhodochrosite. Now, manganese turns stones brown and black. I think you know that, but anyway. So, yes, the white buffalo has manganese in it. Those lines are manganese. So, think about it. Every time you find a stone that grows with manganese, is it not a healer? That's what I'm telling you. These are helper stones. There's a reason why certain gemstones and minerals grow with these very healing materials, in my opinion. Okay, cool. So if your tourmaline looks black, go out in the sunlight. You should be able to find green. Like if I just showed this to you from back here, you'd probably think my tourmaline looks black. Like look right there, it looks like it's just black, doesn't it? But when you hit it with the light, there's a ton of light coming into this room. That's when you see the green. So hopefully you can see your set in there too. Okay, so at the lower elevations is where you find most of the manganese. Okay, so the rhodochrosite that you find at those lower elevations looks like this. Isn't that fascinating? Now, would you buy that as rhodochrosite? If I shipped this to you today and I told you this was rhodochrosite, you would probably send me an email and say, that doesn't look like rhodochrosite. And you'd be right. By the way, the white that's on your tourmaline is feldspar and quartz. See that? All that white, that is feldspar and quartz. And feldspar has its own metaphysical properties too. You should look them up because then you'll really appreciate the full spectrum of what's going on with your piece. Okay, this is rhodochrosite. It's just got so much manganese in it that it's brown. Isn't that cool? So this is like bottom level of the rhodochrosite mine. Up at the top of the mine is this and the pieces that I sent you. So down here you get brown, sort of like chalky, milky. Can you see how it's like a milky texture? It almost looks like an agate. Do you see that? Or a chalcedony, doesn't it? It's almost translucent. That's all that manganese. Do you see all that manganese in there? That's down here. And then at the top, now here's what's really interesting. Are you ready? Do you see that? That right there? That is a combination of galena, sterling silver, pyrite, and hematite. Galena, sterling silver, pyrite, hematite. Think about what that means. Transformation, protection, abundance, prosperity. In sterling silver, you get reflection and expansion, the divine feminine. All of that is inside your rhodochrosite. So one of the reasons, and I have to tell you, I always saw the metals. I assumed it was just pyrite. When I was at Tucson this year and he sat down with me and showed me under the loupe the actual breakdown of all the metals, this is why I'm telling you, I have always loved this stone, because all of those metaphysical properties are part of rhodochrosite, whether it has the evidence of the metals or not. They're all growing in there. It has those chemical and those metaphysical properties. I know. So heart healing, manifestation, abundance. Isn't that incredible? So more and more, I'm looking for tumbled pieces that have this. But by the way, guess what? When I was downstairs in our bin yesterday of our tumbled rhodochrosite, because we have some in stock, guess what? Almost all of them had this. Isn't that cool? I started going through those tumbled pieces. I'm like, oh my God, this one has this sterling silver. And oh my God, this one has this sterling silver. Yeah, Emily, I love this one too. I think it's very pretty. It looks like a doorway, doesn't it? And do you see how there's like a peachy pink kind of section here too? I mean, it is pretty. It's just not this. It's not like textbook rhodochrosite where you go, oh, okay, now I get it. It's not that bubblegum pink, but again, it's the concentration of the manganese that yields the color. I know. Does anybody have the link for the tumbled rhodochrosite? I should also make sure it's in stock because sometimes things go out of stock and I don't know. So if you can't find it, I will help you after our class. I'm so glad you like it. Okay, so that is rhodochrosite. Rhodochrosite is associated with sun sign Cancer, which of course, right? Cancer is such a tender, emotional, connected, loving sign. Water element, although some people say fire element. Do you know that at different parts of the world, it's known as the Incan rose? And here's why. It actually, interestingly enough, is often found in sterling silver mines, and there are Incan silver mines, like actual functioning mines, where during the Incan civilization in that period of history, they mined sterling silver, and so because they found rhodochrosite in those Incan silver mines, they called it the Inca rose. Isn't that beautiful? I don't have the brown for sale, but now that I know that you like it, I bought a piece for teaching purposes because, like, oh, I need to show them what the manganese looks like when it's in a higher proportion. I do. So my husband actually bought from this man that I'm telling you about. He bought a rhodochrosite rose for me at Tucson. If you don't follow my Instagram, you should follow it, because if you go to Instagram, you'll see the picture of the rose. It's very beautiful. Okay, rhodon in Greek means a rose shade of pink, rhodos or rhodon. And that's actually where not only rhodochrosite, the name comes from, but also rhodonite. Okay, and that's one of the reasons it's tricky, because the name is so similar, and so I always understand why people get confused. But there's so much black when what you're working with rhodochrosite is more of the silver, the gray, a little bit of the dark, and then the dark brown with the manganese, but it's typically not the black that you see in rhodonite. Yeah, it was sweet. My husband and I always try to get a gift for each other in Tucson and surprise each other, and that was my my surprise this year. And I got him a beautiful, very rare knife with a very rare etched blade that's made out of a meteorite. So that was my gift to my husband. Okay, so correspondence is sun sign Cancer, water element. The name comes from the Greek word rhodon or rhodos, which means a rose color of pink, and it's also known as the Inca rose because it was found in Incan silver mines. Okay, amethyst, amethystos. Amethystos. So amethyst, our ancient Greek ancestors had a penchant for wine. And maybe that's why I love my culture so much. And so it was thought that if you used amethyst, if you held it, or even better, if you placed a piece of it in a glass of water and drank it after you drank a lot of wine, it would keep you from getting drunk or having a hangover. And so amethystos means not drunk. Isn't that cool? That's where the name comes from. It's a black and rhodonite. It's like 50-50. So I call rhodonite the shadow stone of love, because it teaches you to balance the light and the shadow of love. It's a beautiful stone, just very different mining location, very different crystal structure, and very different metaphysical properties too. It's true. So a little bit of Greek language lesson for you tonight. Amethyst is sun sign Aquarius, of course, because it's the February birthstone. Its element is wind. So there are stones of the earth element, the water element, and then you have the wind element. Wind and storm, and Jackie, remind me to come back to that question. Wind and storm element stones are amalgams of all of the elements. So when you see a wind element stone, that means it's earth and fire and water and everything, if you think about it, because wind creates and pushes and moves all of the other elements. And that's what amethyst does too. It creates and pushes and moves all of the elements to work together synergistically. Okay, now amethyst for me is for a few things. First of all, it's for peace. It does bring peace. If you keep an amethyst cluster near your front door, as the legend goes, we actually have some beautiful amethyst clusters that we just put on sale today, these little gemmy amethyst clusters. I put these already in the section at stagegoddess.com where all of your class tools are located, because it's really good to have one of these by your front door. It will filter out negative energy, and it will create a peaceful vortex near the front of your home. So as people come in, they immediately feel a sense of peace and ease. I have a little cluster of amethyst and calcite by my front door. Same concept, which is, you always have to have smoky quartz by your front door too. And you have to have black tourmaline somewhere in front of your house to protect your house. But amethyst by the front door is going to bring peace and ease. It's going to help people relax when they come into your home. And then you're going to hear things like, gosh, when I come to your house, I just feel so, relaxed, which is what people always tell me. And hopefully it's because it smells good and it, I try to make a beautiful aesthetic experience in my home, but I think it's probably the amethyst by the front door that's making them feel so peaceful. It is a detoxification stone. Did you know that amethyst, and I just keep it by my front door. I have a little table by my door, just like a little entry, like a credenza thing. And I just have it there with my my smoky quartz pyramid and a few other things. Like those are the kind of the basic things you need to have by your front door. The black tourmaline should not be seen. It should be somewhere where it's nondescript outside before the entrance to your door. Does that make sense? Yeah, so just a little chunk of it. And it can be tumbled, it can be raw. I keep one in my car too. Did you know the black tourmaline in your car prevents theft? It's true. It's very true. And it just makes you feel safer. And I've taught my kids too. So now when we moved, they were like, where's the black tourmaline? I had them so well trained, and I was like, look at you guys. You know exactly what stones we need and where they should go. And you absolutely can bury it. Tammy says she buried hers. It's an absolutely fantastic idea, Tammy. You can just, I have a little planter by my door. I don't know if you have any kind of like little plant, as you walk to your front door, a lot of people have planters. Just dig a little bit, stick your tourmaline in there, set an intention, may this home always be safe. Amen. I hope so it is. And then cover it up. So good, right? Yeah, you could keep black tourmaline inside too. I have a piece inside, I have a piece outside. It's just a good protective stone, and it's especially good for space protection. So that's why I like to use it that way. Okay, so for a happy home, amethyst brings peace and balance. It brings moderation, and it's very helpful with addiction. If you know anybody who is trying to, beat an addiction of any kind to anything, whether it's food or toxic relationships or drugs or alcohol, amethyst isn't going to fix everything, especially if the addictive behavior is severe, but it certainly can help someone. And it can also be kind of a touchstone reminder whenever they look at it, like, oh, I need to resist whatever that temptation is. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, Nicole's asking about alternatives. Absolutely, onyx is a fantastic protective alternative to black tourmaline. If black tourmaline is too heavy for you, or you just don't like to work with it too much, onyx is a great alternative. Isurine, if you guys don't have a piece of isurine, for the longest time I sold them wire wrapped because you should wear it. But isurine keeps all your energy in and everybody else's energy out. It is so absolutely amazing for your aura. Isurine, petalite, these are stones that keep your energy in and everybody else's energy out there. You just don't want to overdo it too much because they're actually so powerful for maintaining an auric shield that they can keep you from receiving communications and connection with people. So the isurine, let me type that for you. Let's see where I can type that. That's isurine. Isurine comes from Africa, and it's really special. And we have some somewhere, so I can dig that up for you. Okay, and then our last stone for tonight is our tourmaline. By the way, this trio would be a great trio to keep by your front door. If you think about it, it's going to bring health and love. It's going to bring protection, and especially because you have protective elements in the rhodochrosite too, in the form of the metals. And then the tourmaline is going to also bring protection, wisdom. This is a huge wisdom stone. Green tourmaline in particular is very powerful for wisdom and tapping into your deep inner knowing. So tourmaline is sun sign Libra. All tourmaline, by the way, is associated with sun sign Libra. Water element. Oh, I forgot to tell you, rhodochrosite on the measure of hardness scale is a 4. That's a 4. Amethyst on the measure of hardness scale is a 7. And do you know why? You should learn to know to differentiate between these. That's really funny, Eva. Amethyst will actually help with that. Any quartz material is a 7 on the measure of hardness scale. Let me repeat that so you always remember. Any member of the quartz family is a 7 on the measure of hardness scale, which is pretty good. A diamond is a 10. Ruby sapphire are 9. So 7 is pretty strong, which means I never have to worry about my quartz. If I wear a quartz ring, I don't have to worry about breaking it, because chances are you're not going to have any damage or breakage with citrine or with quartz of any kind. Okay, and then the name tourmaline comes from the word turamali, which is an East Asian word that means something small from the earth. Isn't that fun? Something small from the earth. Measure something small from the earth. If you like your piece, I would recommend that you wire wrap it. That's another way to use this. I mean, what an incredible necklace that would make. My jeweler Sylvia is really good with taking pieces like this and putting like a metal cap on top of them. So if you know a metalsmith or you do metalsmithing, you could make something really special out of that. Okay, let me talk to you a little bit about tourmaline. You ready? So tourmaline. A lot of tourmaline, interestingly, grows in Southern California, and it's almost all of it is on Indian reservation land. So what's really fascinating about Southern California is you can't get to a lot of the tourmaline mines. In fact, if you talk to rock hounds and people who love talking about gems and mining and geology, they'll tell you, I mean, there's probably some of the most amazing museum quality, huge tourmaline crystals that are inside of mines on reservation land that's never going to be excavated. And part of me likes it. Yeah, you can actually, Jordan. If you buy your GemWise kit and you buy the add-on wire wrap listing and just say in the comments which one you want wire wrapped, you can actually do that at the same time, and we'll wrap any of the stones from your kit for you to wear, which is kind of a cool thing. So there's a lot of tourmaline that we're never going to see. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about tourmaline, and I'm going over time, and I just need 5 more minutes. And then we'll take up Q&A in the group, because that's an easy way for me to write answers to questions. Okay, tourmaline is one of the most diverse stone families or group of stones that we can work with. Tourmaline comes in literally almost every color, from red, which is rubellite. There's even a beautiful gold tourmaline color. Then it goes into green. There are different shades of blue, which is called indicolite. There's even a purple shade of tourmaline, and then it goes into the brown tourmaline, which is dravite. And then there's a black tourmaline, which is the darkest of the colors that we work with. All tourmaline grows with quartz, smoky quartz, clear quartz, rose quartz, and amethyst. And then all tourmaline not only grows with quartz, it grows with kunzite, which is the spodumene family. And then within the kunzite family, there's green kunzite, which is called hiddenite. And then there is yellow kunzite, and then there's pink kunzite. And the difference, by the way, is just heat. Okay, so we're talking about tourmaline right now. Oh, the element for tourmaline? Water. Thank you for asking. Yep, water. Oh yeah, and then there's watermelon. So there are bicolor tourmalines. Those are the rarest. So you can find pink and green, which they call watermelon, at the Paula mine in San Diego, which is in Southern California here. They found the rarest bicolor tourmaline ever mined in history. It was pink and blue, and it's called the Queen. And it's about this big, and I think it went at auction, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, upwards, I'm sure, of $10 million. I mean, it is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. Now, when all of this commotion was happening at that mine in Southern California, a man named George Coons was sent from Tiffany & Co. when the word got through, you know, sort of the jewelry industry and some of these big box stores that they'd been finding some of this really rare tourmaline in Southern California. So Tiffany & Co. sent George Coons to the Queen Mine at Paula, and he brought back to Tiffany & Co. Coonsite, and so hence the name Coonsite. George Coons discovered it. And so because he was literally the head not only of acquisition of stones for Tiffany & Co. for decades, he was also their chief jeweler. And in fact, the first gem quality piece of jewelry made out of green tourmaline was made by Tiffany & Co., I believe in the early 1900s. And it was made by George Coons, who not only brought back Coonsite from the Queen Mine to Tiffany, but also brought back some specimen pieces of green tourmaline. I have all this random encyclopedic knowledge of gemstones. I know it's crazy, but that's why you are here. So he brought back just a couple handful of crystals. I've seen the raw material that he brought back in terms of the green tourmaline, and everybody at Tiffany & Co. were like, what is this, right? Because they had not seen anything like that before. So they cut and faceted it, and they made some of the original, at least original Tiffany pieces out of the green tourmaline. And it's so gorgeous. But I'm going to keep blowing your mind. Are you ready? So tourmaline grows with quartz, grows with feldspar, grows with Coonsite, the spodumene family, grows with the beryl family. So you find pink beryl, which is morganite, yellow beryl, which is heliodor, blue beryl, which is aquamarine, and clear beryl, which is goshenite, which I just showed you the other day. Did you guys get the goshenite from Nigeria? Crazy. That was one of the wholesale price on goshenite pieces that size is usually about $100 to $200. So the fact that I had them retail for, I think, $64 was like, I actually had a friend reach out to me and say, are you kidding me right now? I was like, well, you know, but as we grow and we find ways to, you know, if we have savings here at Sage Goddess, we are going to pass those on to you. So, you know, we were just passing on a fantastic find to you. But literally my friend was like, are you flipping kidding me right now? And I was like, no, I mean, it's like the Nigerian stuff is the rarest stuff. Because again, you find tourmaline in different parts of the world, and you do find it in Nigeria, and it grows with the beryl family. You also find kyanite, ruby, and moonstone growing with tourmaline and feldspar and quartz and beryl and spodumene. So that's, oh, and lepidolite. I forgot to mention lepidolite and the entire mica family. So when you go and mine, and by the way, the Paula mine is an active mine. You can go and mine. I don't remember how much it costs a day, but oh, you're welcome. It's fun for me. I mean, it's fun for me to make things that are really rare accessible to you, because I think that's the joy, right? I want you to look at your collection and just go, I can't believe I have these things. So it's really special to me to be able to bring you things and make them accessible for you. So when you go to that mine, your head kind of explodes, right? Because you're like, oh my God, that's lepidolite, that's pink tourmaline, that's quartz, that's ruby, that's kyanite, that's, I mean, and you're seeing it. And literally there are pieces where there's matrix and just all of these veins of tourmaline and veins of lepidolite and veins and veins and veins. So check this out. Are you ready? This is a ruby. This is a record keeper ruby. Do you see the record keepers, the triangles? Guess what that is? That's going to blow your mind. That's kyanite. And somewhere on this piece, here it is, that is black tourmaline sitting on that kyanite inside of that ruby. Can you guys see that? Unflippin' believable, right? That's black tourmaline on kyanite in a ruby. And this is the actual, just the plain ruby crystal, because it's a hex. It's a hexagon. We're going to talk about rubies next month. Crazy, right? Yeah, so look up Paula if you want to go to SoCal Mine. It's P-A-L-A. And you'll have a lot of fun, actually. You can end up going down a rabbit hole, you know, if it's late at night and you're like, you start researching and all of a sudden you're click onto this video and then click onto that video, but it's fun. You know, it's fun to research that mine. I don't know that mine will be open forever. They've been talking about the fact that it's a little unstable and whether it would be open. So I'm going to take my kids next year because I just want to make sure they have the experience before either the mind closes or it becomes too unstable. Here's the last thing I was going to tell you. So, and tourmaline, like I said, is for wisdom and love, because tourmaline is one of the primary heart chakra stones that we can work with. So I was at the Paula Mine, must be closing in on like 8 years ago, okay? My kids were small. And we're there, and we're excited. It's hard work, by the way. I mean, it's physical, it's manual labor. But who cares? It's crystals, okay? So I'm there, and we're mining and stuff, and all of a sudden I see a truck pull up, and it says Merck. Merck, like the pharmaceutical company, Merck, M-E-R-C-K. And so we're still going, but I'm like, gosh, I mean, all these trucks are coming through, and there's another Merck truck, and another Merck truck, and another Merck truck. And then they came through and said, sorry, guys, but we have to shut down. And we had only been there for like 4 or 5 hours because Merck was mining lithium for antidepressants. Lepidolite is lithium. So they were there in a tourmaline mine mining lepidolite for medication. Medication that you might take. Isn't that amazing? So it's funny, we think of like all of our medical advancements and all the things that we have changed and grown and but the reality is our gemstones, our crystals are still some of the most potent healers that we have on this planet. And even our pharmaceutical companies are using our minerals to address our medical conditions. Isn't it crazy? Right? Really funny. All right, well, I'm going to sign off for now. Thank you for all of your patience tonight. I hope you love this class. I hope you're having a good time. I always welcome your feedback. So if there's anything you need different or more or less, like, oh, I love this part, but I don't love this other part, I am happy to make any and all modifications. The only modification I haven't made is that somebody said that they thought the classes were too long. I apologize. I just don't know how to make them any shorter. And I guess if I stopped rambling and didn't give you so many examples, but I don't know how to do that. I never explained what 6 was. Oh, the numerology of it. 6 is very interesting. 6 people are loners, 6 life path people. Think about this in the context of the hexagon. I never fully understood why 6 people were loners, but do you know why? 6 people are a complete container unto themselves. 6 people often are self-sufficient at a very young age. Often they end up sort of being parents to their own parents kind of thing. They tend to be spiritually developed, self-sufficient, and have achieved a level of mastery. That's very much what the hexagon is. Isn't that cool? There's connections between all of it. Well, you guys like that it's long, so that makes me happy. Well, my thing is, I like people to get their money's worth. Like, I'd like for you at the end of each class to go, that was so worth 20 bucks. That was like the best 20 bucks I spent. My goal is for you to say that about every class that we have together. So just keep the feedback coming. Huge love to you. Thank you for being present and being available and developing your knowledge of stones, and also using that to help not only your clients and the people that you work with as a healer, but also to support your own health and well-being. I really love that. I think changing the planet one person and one crystal at a time. So don't forget code 15 ships everything free unless you want to use your holistic healer discount. You can do either or. The new set for April, which is the Magnify set. This little stone, by the way, in our April class, I'm going to be doing a little ritual with you. So you will need the stone to do the ritual that we're going to do together. And we're going to set an intention together, and then we're going to use this to magnify the energies of the intention that you set. And we're going to do an experiment. We're going to track it for 30 days, and we're going to be in dialogue with each other in the Facebook group about how your intention is evolving and developing. And we're going to put all of our energy in that April class, not only to your whatever you're manifesting, but we're going to send it all to the entire collective of the GemWise class. I think we're going to raise some really powerful energy. It's going to be a fun experiment in do crystals work? So the set is there tonight with your Magnify Palm Stone. We're doing these fun little GemRx prescription sets. Did you see that? I talked about it in our Facebook group today. We're doing little stone trios, $3 a stone, which is pretty crazy for lapis, I have to say. But so these are for, this is your power set. We're making little trios called GemRx prescriptions for different issues. Because a lot of you have been asking, like, do you have stones for power? Do you have stones for healing? Do you have stones for this? So we're trying to put these little sets together in an affordable way. And I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions before I sign off? It's been so good to be with you guys tonight. I hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you so much. And I will see you in our Facebook group. And we'll pick up Q&A there. So if you have questions after tonight's session, head over to the Facebook group, post the questions there. I'll either be in tonight or tomorrow to answer them for you. Take good care, everybody. I'll see you soon.